Okay, what we discussed in the last class is about the purpose of the interpretation, right? Yeah, purpose of the interpretation, right? Yeah. What are the purposes? To ascertain God's message means to understand, right? To understand God's message, then um, to have a correct theology, to have a valid content in our preaching, to have a valid application in our preaching and teaching. Okay, that was the general purpose, right? 4 of them was the general purpose. And we studied a special purpose. That is a one and single purpose. What is? Interpretation or hermeneutics required to bridge the gaps. So interpretation stands as a bridge where we have to walk and reach to the situation and understand. What are the gaps? Now we just categorize the gaps, right? What are the gaps? First is historical gap, right? Historical gap is also time gap. Time gap. So we need to know the. Then we just studied the ancient Near Eastern culture or in Near Eastern history. If you don't know the ancient Near Eastern history, then it is very difficult to understand the book of Genesis because it is full of ancient Near Eastern history. And again, one more example can be given is book of Obadiah. Book of Obadiah, right? The smallest book in the Old Testament. Just a single chapter. So you must have read book of Obadiah, right? I mean, not studied. You must have read or not. Huh? Okay, you just simply read, right? So Obadiah is a prophet, right? So the book of Obadiah is categorized into which prophetical section? It's a minor prophet, right? So book of Obadiah is it's prophesying about whom? To a particular people. The prophecy is against a particular people called Edomites. Okay, Edomites. Who were Edomites? Okay, they are the descendants of Esau. Okay, they are the Edomites are the descendants of Esau. Okay, and if you want to know the book of Obadiah clearly, you also need to study the history of Edomites. If you don't know the history of Edomites, and if you don't know they are originated from whom and their lifestyle and their kingdom, if you don't know anything about them, then you will face difficulty in understanding the book of Obadiah. For example, if you take Obadiah chapter, I'll just read that portion that you understand. Book of Obadiah chapter. There is only one chapter, so there is no need of telling a chapter. Obadiah verses 4. My translation will be very difficult for you to understand. Though thou mount on high as the eagle, and though thy nest be set among the stars, I will bring thee down from thence, saith Jehovah. So what is in your translation?
Though you soar like the eagle and make your nest among the stars, from here I will bring you down, declares the Lord.
Okay, in a simplest way, paraphrase form, you can say, even if you fly like an eagle, Like eagle, eagle. Even if you fly like an eagle and try to make your nest among the stars, no matter you are making your nest among the stars, from there I will bring you down. Why Obadiah, the prophet Obadiah, is particularly mentioning such things regarding Edomites? No, that's what you need to know. If you want to know that verse, you also need to know the history of Edomites. Edomites, they are the people who lives in mountains. Okay, they are the people who mainly live in mountain. For example, just think that this is our mountain, and they will make their houses on the cliff of the rock. You know what is cliff? Cliff actually, it's a, just think that this is the rock, and this part, like if you fall from here, there is no like stoppage, you will directly fall to the ground. So there is no nothing, this is called a cliff. Okay, this is called a cliff. So they will, their kingdom is in the on the rock, and their houses are on the cliff. Why they are making their houses on the cliff of the rock? Or why they are making their kingdom on the rock, upon the mountain? So that enemies will not attack them. So for them it is a secure place. Nobody will come and attack them, because it is these people, they have the advantage. Look, enemies, they have to come from down and to attack, but these people, for them it is very easy to defend and defeat them, because they are coming from down, they are attacking from the upside. So it is for any enemy, it is difficult for them to attack. So they have a crowd, that is in verse 3. No, verse 3. Yeah, the pride of thy heart hath deceived thee, oh thou that dwellest in the cleft of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? So that is their thinking. Who will bring us down? There is nobody who can defeat us. So that is their mentality. So how did we get this idea, this history, how they are making their houses in the rocks and cliffs? It is not mentioned in the Bible, right? It is not there. So it is through the interpretation. When we study the history of Edomites, we know that they are living in the cliffs of the rock, and they're in the mountain. That is why Obadiah is telling that even if you fly like an eagle and try to make your nest among the stars, even if you live in that high place, from there I can bring you down. And the history, when you study the history, the Babylonians attacked the Edomites and defeated them completely. The book of Obadiah, the prophecy was fulfilled during the Babylonian time, and they lost their territory. They had to come down to the southern side of Judea, and they became known as Nabateans. Or the Nabateans attacked them. I just forget that one. I just remember that, and I just telling. So Babylonians attacked them. So they lost their territory. They had to come to the ground. They lost their power. They lost their security. They lost their all the possession. They had lots of wealth, and they had lots of treasury in their mountain. So they lost everything. So that's what I said. If you want to study the book of Obadiah, you also need to know the history of Edomites. So when we come to the New Testament, we know a person who is an Edomite. You know who is that? In the New Testament, there is a particular person who has the lineage of Edomites. Yeah. Herod, right? Herod the Great. Herod the Great was an Edomite. Herod the Great was an Edomite, and he married from the Hasmonean. You know what is Hasmonean? Hasmonean dynasty. You know, right? Hasmoneans are like, when we think about Jews, whatever. First, they were attacked by Assyrians, they were attacked by Babylon, then they were attacked by Persia, then they were oppressed by Greeks. Then they were oppressed by Romans, right? So in between Greeks and Romans, before the Jewish territory was occupied by Romans, during the time of now after the Greek, the Alexander the Great, right? Who is the one who established the Greek kingdom? Alexander the Great, right? Alexander the Great. So after his death, what happened? The Greek kingdom divided into four. So his four generals took up the kingdom. Four generals took up the kingdom, and Seleucus, Lysimachus, Cassander, I forget the one. So then again the kingdom was divided into four. Now it was going, and during the time, Antiochus Epiphanes was from Ptolemy. Antiochus Epiphanes from Ptolemy. So he is the foreshadow of Antichrist. What happened? He sacrificed a pig in the altar. Antiochus Epiphanes, not the Antichrist. Antichrist is doing that one, but Antichrist is the Antiochus Epiphanes is actually the foreshadow of Antichrist. He did it first in this time, and suddenly the Jewish people, they got angry and they made a movement. That movement is called Hasmonean. The Hasmonean movement or Hasmonean dynasty, and this is also known as Maccabean revolt. This is also known as Maccabean revolt. Okay, this Jewish gathered and they fought against the generals of Ptolemy, and they somehow captured the land. And for a certain, maybe I think just 100 plus years, the Maccabeans ruled here. So their dynasty is called Hasmonean dynasty. So the Edomites, the Herod the Great, he married a girl from the Hasmonean family, and he became a Jew. Jew means half Jew. So he was an Edomite, but he married a girl from Hasmonean family, and he became half Jew. Okay, just telling the history. That's all. Just for information that I'm just telling. Okay, what I was telling is there is a historical gap. There is a time gap. So if you want to know certain events, certain books, you also need to know the history of certain kingdom and certain people. For example, if you want to know the book of Genesis, you need to know the ancient Near Eastern history. If you want to know the book of Obadiah, you need to know the history of Edomites. And again, if you want to know the book of Jonah, you also need to know the history of Assyrians. See, all the books and everything is connected to some history. So if you don't know the history of Assyria, then it is very difficult for you to understand the book of Jonah. Okay, so this is the historical gap. Clear? Somewhat clear, right? You may not be fully clear, but it will be cleared later as you study further. What was the second gap? Cultural gap, right? So did we discuss anything under this? No, nothing. Okay. Cultural gap. Okay, what is actually culture? What is the definition of culture? Culture is? You said something. Tradition? Just a simple word. You can explain in a simple word. Huh? Festival. What you said, everything is included in the culture, but that is not culture. You said tradition. Yes, that is there in the culture. You said festival. That is there in the culture. But if someone asks you, no, you know the culture. You know what is culture. You know, but you are no, you are unable to explain what is culture. That is a problem. So we know certain things, but when someone asks what is that, then it is difficult for us to explain. Right? So you know culture. Then I'm asking what is culture. The custom is there in the culture. Hmm? Huh? What is that? Maldi. Badal is thinking too much, so I think he has the answer. Huh? Yeah, there are many things, as he said. Yeah. The simplest word, the simplest sentence we can say, culture is lifestyle. Very simple, right? So you don't have to think too much. So culture is what? Culture is a lifestyle. That is called culture. You need to think too much. So if you think too much, you will have a very complex and complicated answers. Okay. Since you said some certain answer, we can divide culture into two. Okay, two sections. Number one, physical culture. Physical or the physicality of the culture. You can say physical culture. Can you just tell some of the things which is included in the culture when we can regard it as a physical? I'll just start with one so that now it is coming like anything. So you will answer me like anything. Okay. The first is house. It's a physical, right? Every culture has a different style of making houses. Huh? Huh?
Yes.
Say that's what I said. Now it is coming. Dress. Huh? Food. Yeah. Hmm? Huh? Yeah. Yeah. Cars again. Yeah. Can be. You can just put in a bracket car. Again, house, dress, food, and is there another thing? No. Again, food. Yeah. Games. Hmm? So these all are included in the physicality of the physical nature of culture. Okay. So what will be the second one? No, no, no. Social. Social culture. So what are the things included in the social culture? Hmm? Hmm. Yeah. So social culture is actually relationships, marriage, festivals, then you can say family, communication, communication, thought process. So these all are included in the social culture. So culture can be divided into physical, and social. These are the things included. So if you just take these two, and now you can go to Bible again, you can differentiate, right? In Bible time, they buildings, infrastructure, houses, and are quite different. For example, like you are reading the the incident of or the healing of the paralytic man, one who was carried by four. How did he come down? So they broke the roof, right? Just imagine that present day a concrete building. How can they break with that what do you call thriller and on? So you need to know the Bible time how they build the houses. So those all comes under the physical culture and their food, their feastings, their games, and again the social culture, relationship, marriage, festival, families, communications, their thought process, and everything is we can just divide that into when we study Bible we can divide that into. So I'll just tell one issue and you have to tell me it comes under which. Head covering. Social. That is dress, right? Head covering, no? Then holy kiss. Social, right? Feet washing. Social. See, that's what I said. Now you can just differentiate, right? Up to that time, we just put into a single category. It's a culture. But that is divided, okay? And and certain cultural issues we will study in maybe in the next chapter when we study about the cultural issue. We have a certain section called the cultural issues. So there we will study. I'm just introducing the gaps only, the gaps. Now the third gap is geographical gap. Geographical gap. So what do you mean by geographical gap? Hmm? Or geographical gap, in other words, we can say space gap. Space gap. Okay. Just think about us. We are living in India, the southern side of India, but the Bible events are happening where? In the European, Asia Minor, even the Central Asia, right? Central Asia. So the events happen in European, Asia, Asia Minor, and Central Asia. So that means there is a gap, and moreover, it happened years ago. The geography is completely changed. Just in the Bible time, like for example, like Joshua